जॉब चाहिए तो ध्यान से सुनना.
Hello, I'm Junaid and you're listening to episode 2 of How I Made It, a podcast by DSC KIIT interviewing people from the KIIT community who made it big in the tech industry. Today I have with me is my co-host Biswaroop. Biswaroop, how are you doing today?
Hey Junaid, I'm doing great. So today we have with us a very special person, Harshit. He is one of our senior from the CSC branch of batch 2021. Harshit recently got one of the highest placement offers in KIIT from Amazon. Before that, he interned with High Ideas for 6 months as a summer and data science intern. Apart from that, he also has a lot of experience with MUNs. He thinks there's a lot that goes into the preparation for placements. So let's find out how he made it. Thank you so much, Bhaiya, for doing this with DSC KIIT.
Yeah, guys, thank you for having me.
So let's start with a little more about you. Like, where are you from? What are you up to these days? Maybe give an introduction to our listeners. Up to you, Bhaiya.
Yeah, of course. So I'm currently residing in Kolkata. This is where I was brought up. I've spent like close to 20 years of my life here. So academics-wise, I've been a pretty good student, at least back in school, but not so much in college. And over the past 1 year, I've worked as a summer intern and as a data science intern in High Radius. And when I left High Radius, soon after that, I also got selected in IBM. But I did not join IBM because right before the joining date, I got selected for Amazon. So currently, like nowadays, for the past 2 months, most of my time is spent in the Amazon internship.
So that's amazing, Bhaiya. I guess let's go back a bit to your first year at KIIT. So we were just interested, like, what were your interests back then? What did you do in first year? What was it like?
So my first year was both a bit dull and at the same time exciting because I was lost, I was confused. I did not know that whether engineering is what I wanted to do. And I had lost all interest in scoring marks because since school I was good in scoring marks, but that did not fetch me anything good, right? So I had lost all interest in scoring marks. I just wanted to explore. And coming to the exciting times in first year. So when I was in class 12, I gave this exam called the NDA exam, and I was selected for it. This is like an exam for the Indian Air Force. And so in my first year, I went to Varanasi for my SSP interview for the Indian Air Force. And I did not expect to be selected, but then I made it to the last round, and I got eliminated in the last round. But it was a fun experience, and main purpose of going there was to explore, and I did that. Apart from that, in my first year, I also tried to join some societies to know more about KIIT and also to enhance my communication skills. And one of those societies was the MUN Society, with which I was associated for the next 2 years as well.
Wow.
Also, apart from that, during the first year, I did not go much to classes. That was the last thing that I did. But I spent most of my time watching TV series and movies. There was this one particular TV series you guys must know about. That was very famous at that time, like 3-4 years ago. That was the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So
Of
me
course,
and
yeah.
my group of friends, we would sit together and watch it, binge watch it all the time.
Wow.
Like those late night times at the hostels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's interesting, like your Air Force experience and all. That's like really interesting.
Yeah.
So
So, Bhaiya, what has your journey in programming been like? Like in the past few years, beginning in your first year and right up to the current year. So, how would you describe it?
Okay, so I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I have a programming background even before I came to KIIT. I learned Java and basics of data structures back in school in my class 10, 11, and 12. So yeah, I had knowledge about programming, and that is one of the main reasons I took computer science programming. But as I said, for the first 2 years of my life, I did not do programming. I did not study because engineering करना ही नहीं था. That is not something I wanted to do. Even I find it surprising right now how everything changed for me. So my marks start deteriorating, and as a academics wise, I was a good student, so this scared me. And so third year, I told myself, okay, I need to get my shit together. I need to focus on my studies, and everything's changed in the third year. Coming to programming per se, third year we have our projects. So most of the programming I did was for projects, and I also did problem solving because placements was also important. And apart from that, there was another thing which is not associated with programming as such, but it's called the GATE exam, right? Which is an exam. It is an entrance exam for your masters, because I did not want to masters in India. I did not want to go abroad for my masters. I always had this mentality that if I can get like the top 3 universities in India, IISc and the top IITs, then its point is going abroad. So also in the third year, I started preparing for my GATE exam.
Okay.
So yeah, that's about it.
So it was, I guess, a mix of like problem solving, projects, and GATE. So kind of you were now in like putting your effort into the kind of things that are kind of expected when you want to like go ahead in your career. Okay.
Exactly.
So
I got serious about my life, and
you had to like get it together.
On these 3 things.
So I guess I have to like come to the elephant in the room. Recently, you got an offer of 30 lakhs per annum from Amazon. It is, I guess, the highest in KIIT. So naturally, I want to ask, like, can you just describe that whole journey from the initial screening tests up to the final interview rounds? What was it like, and how did you prepare for it?
Okay, yeah, sure. So when Amazon came September, May, I was still working for Hydarius. I was still a data science intern, and I was still preparing for my GATE. When Amazon came, I was scared because, again, this is Amazon. This is like all my friends knew that Amazon was the dream company for me. It's that one company I keep telling everyone about. I did not apply for a lot of companies. Like there are very, very few, 4, 5, 6, 7 companies that I applied for, and Amazon was one of those companies. So it came in September. First round, I think, was the online test. There were around 1,300 people who were shortlisted to give the online test. And I'll tell you about the parts of the online test. The first part was code debugging. There were 7 questions. You had 20 minutes. Then the second part was the coding round, and in which we were given 2 questions based on data structures. Those 2, the first question was relatively easy. The second question was a little tough. Okay. It was a little tough, and you had 90 minutes to solve both the questions. Then after that, once you're done with this coding round, the part that is after that is very easy comparatively. There was the behavioral test. After that, after this, we had, we had logical reasoning, aptitude, and all that. And this was it for the online tests. And after the online test was done, I spoke to my seniors because my online test went really well, and I was expecting a call for the interview. So I spoke to my seniors and I asked them, when should I be expecting the call for interview? And they said that Amazon usually informs you about the interview in a week or 2. And so I started preparing for the interview, and I knew what they ask in the interview. I knew that they ask questions from data structures. Like there will be 2 interviews, 2 questions each in both the interviews from data structures. So I started preparing for that, and I prepared every day as if my interview is on the next day, because that's what Amazon does. Like if they will send you a mail today, and then they will tell you that your interview is tomorrow. And so like this, I prepared for 1 month, expecting कि call आएगा अगले दिन. But the call never came. And then I realized, okay, maybe something happened. Maybe Amazon has changed the requirements. Maybe they are not going to come. Or maybe I'm not shortlisted. There could be many reasons. So I left my preparation, DSC preparation, and I went back to GATE studies, which focused more on the theoretical subjects, and not so much on the code. And so 3 months after that, in December, 18th December, I got a mail from Amazon that my interview is scheduled on the next day, 19th December.
Wow.
And this was the scariest part because I hadn't done any coding for so many months, 2 or 3 months, and I had 1 day to prepare for the interview. But then I played smart. I instead of doing newer questions, I looked at the questions that I've already solved. I went to my Geeks for Geeks page and my lead code page, and I checked all the questions that I've done. I read the problem statement and I figured out, okay, how should I solve this? Right. And that helped. So the day of the interview came. So the first interview, I'll describe what the first interview was like. In the first interview, it started with the introduction, like all interviews. And then we discussed a little bit about data structures as a whole, about graphs, about trees, about where it's used. The purpose of asking me these questions was just to test my knowledge on data structures. After this was done, we went down to the main business, which was coding, right? I think I had 1 hour to solve 2 questions. In the first interview, out of the 2 questions that they gave me, the 1 question I had already solved the last day. So it was easy for me. And the second question, I was able to solve it as well. After solving the questions, they will also ask you about the time complexity and the space complexity. So I was also comfortable with that. So this is where the first interview ended. Within an hour of the first interview, I again got a call from the Amazon people, from the Amazon HR, and they told me that my second interview is scheduled and I have to join the link again in 5 minutes. And the second interview was scheduled. I joined the meeting. Again, the procedure was same. The only difference between the first interview and the second interview is in the second interview, you might be asked a little bit about your projects. There won't be any cross questions as such, but they will just ask you, what have you done? Explain it to me. What is the purpose of this project? What technologies have you worked on? And that's about it, because Amazon does not focus that much on projects as much as other companies do. They focus more on your coding skills. That's what matters for them. So again, we came down to the main business, which was coding. Again, we were given 2 questions. I was given 2 questions which I had to solve in 1 hour. Now these questions were relatively tougher, way tougher than the first interview. But with the help of the interviewer, I discussed my solution with him, and he kept guiding me, giving me hints. If he sees that I'm on the right track, then he will guide me to the right path. And so I discussed my solution with him, and I got the solution. I coded it, and he was happy with it. Then that was about it. There were 2 interviews. So a few days later, around 4 or 5 days later, on 24th December, I got the result that I got selected at Amazon.
Wow.
That's great. That was really
amazing.
So I would like to ask you this question. It has been asked again and again. The same question I would like to ask you too. So what do you think? Does CGPA really matters? In all these, getting these offers for these things,
you have an history, you said, for the first 2 years you struggled a bit with the CGPA, but then you are the person who has the highest offer in our college. So I guess it's interesting what you think about this question.
So your perspective.
This is a great question. Right. This is a great question. So I've done my research on this. Okay, I'll tell you. I'll give you a little bit of gyan of what I have accumulated.
Yes.
Okay. So I did my research on this before coming to KIIT. Okay, before coming to this college, and I found out from Quora and from other seniors that your CGPA does not matter. Your skills matter the most. This is what I was told, and this is one of the reasons I never focused on CGPA. But later on, in third year, I was shocked to find that this advice which was given to me was incorrect. It was wrong. Okay, it was completely wrong. I mean, it is true somewhat because your skills do matter. But let's not forget, you're in college, and especially in a college which might have like 3,000 students in a batch. And so when companies come to your campus, they will not test all these 3,000 candidates. They will not. They will choose a measure by which they can interview the least number of people. And that's where CGPA comes in. I was a victim of this. Okay, there were many companies for which I was not shortlisted, and it hurts. It hurts when you're not allowed to even sit for the company. It hurts, and all these companies were paying really high packages. So that's the part that hurt the most. I'll give you an example. Okay, I think there was this company called Autodesk, which also came recently for the third years. You guys in second years, so you don't know about it. It came for third years. Autodesk, it shortlisted only 13 people on the basis of CGPA. Only 13 people. That for the online test.
What was the range like CGPA? Like how much they with a shorting on?
It's hard to say because they don't reveal that. Okay. They don't reveal that.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing like I can give you an approximate number. That would be I think 9.5. That's what it is for some of the companies, especially the companies which pay high paying packages. This is the CGPA wala thing is not applicable to all high paying companies, but yeah, some of them. Autodesk, VMware, even in Informatica to some extent, because they were asking for a CGPA of 8.5. I was not shortlisted because my interview at that time was around 8.1 or 8.2. So it hurt. So yeah, CGPA does matter. CGPA will help you get to that interview. It will help you get that interview. Once you're inside that interview, no one gives a damn about your CGPA. That's where your skills matter. That's where your knowledge matters.
Yeah. So what would you like to suggest to your juniors? Like how much they should minimum keep the CGPA on? Like to get properly on like every placement.
Ballpark number maybe.
Okay. It's hard to suggest my juniors given that my CGPA itself is 8.5 right now, 8.4, 8.5. But yeah, I would suggest keep your CGPA around, like if you really want to sit for all the companies, then at least keep it above 9. At least keep it above 9. But if you're like, okay, fine, I don't want to sit for VMware, it's fine if Autodesk does not select me, it's fine. Then you can keep it above 8.5. But if you're aiming for that crazy high packages, then keep it above 9.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not at all tough. It's not at all tough. You just have to put in the hours, which I did not.
Yeah. So, Bhaiya, I guess my next question is like, there is this lot of rage about DSA, do it. But what do you think are like some of the other things one should also focus on to maybe grab offers like this? What would like you say the other things you did maybe added to your experience that made you a better pick over the other candidates?
Okay, yeah. So there is a lot of rage about DSA because it is important, right?
Yeah.
It is one of. But I understand your question. But let me just state it that DSA is probably the most important subject for your placements. The most important subject. Like I'll speak about Amazon for instance. I was asked 6 questions in total throughout the recruitment process of Amazon. 2 questions in the online test, 2 questions in the first interview, and then 2 questions again in the second interview. So DSA is the most important one. And when the interviewer asked me about project, I don't think he was evaluating me on the basis of project, but it might differ for different companies. There are companies who will also look at other things, and I'll tell you about these all the other things that you need to focus on because that's what your question is.
Yeah.
So the other things, one of the things that you have to focus on, apart from DSA, is if you're a computer science student, then it's the core subjects. For instance, operating systems, computer networks. These are the two most important subjects, and DBMS. These three are the most important core subjects that most of the companies will test you on. Apart from that, it's always good to have good communication skills, because this will help you in answering the questions, and this helped me in explaining my approach to the interview during the Amazon interview. This will also help you in explaining your project. Like, I did not tell you about my IBM interview. So in my IBM interview, it was a 1-hour interview. I was asked mostly about the project, the ins and outs of my project, everything. And project. So most important thing is do your project yourself. Don't copy it. It's pointless. I don't know why people do it. My friends have done it. It's pointless. It will not help you. You have to explain your project to the interviewer. So don't do that. And so that's about it. Over subjects, projects, and there was another thing that I mentioned.
Okay.
So if you had to like do it all over again, so how would you proceed, or like what advice would you give to your juniors regarding this?
Just imagine you just respawned into first year and you had like chance to do it all over again.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So if I could go back in time, if I could do it all over again, then I would rectify all my mistakes. Like, I would take an interest in those computer science subjects, core subjects in the first 2 years, because most people I've noticed, they mug up the subjects, even my friends. These are interesting subjects and these will help you in the interview. The way you prepare for these subjects for the exams, and the way the questions from these subjects are asked to you in the interview, they're different. For instance, let's consider CN. In your tests, you will most probably be given a numerical, right? The interviews, they will ask you conceptual questions. Okay, I love examples, so I'll give you an example. This is like one of the most common questions asked in interviews and also in Amazon. Is explain to me the entire flow. I'm not asking you to get this question, I'm giving an example. Explain to me the entire flow of what happens when you type a website link on the URL link and you press enter. So what happens on the inside internally? Basically, this question is asking you how the internet works. So you have to explain, go into the technical details of how, when you enter the domain name, it goes and fetches the IP address using the DNS and all that. I won't get into the technical part, but this is like the interesting conceptual questions that they will ask you. Or maybe I'll give you another example. Okay, and this was from CN. I'll give you another example from operating systems. And this is also something you guys must have noticed in your day-to-day life, is when you start your computer. Okay, when you start your laptop, why during the initial period your laptop is so slow? Have you guys studied operating system?
Yeah.
You guys have. So there's something called as translation. This is a cache called as translation look-aside buffer.
TLB.
So the answer revolves around it. So whenever you're studying these subjects, don't just study these subjects to score marks. Study these subjects conceptually so that you understand it. And this will also help you in developing an interest in that subject. So that's one thing. Focusing on the subjects. Another thing, if I could go back in time, I would do is do some exciting projects. I started projects in my third year, mostly machine learning projects. So if I could go back in time, I would do an end-to-end project with everything, the kind of project that iRadius made us do, like maybe web development, then integrating machine learning with it, and then also adding the cloud components to it, like maybe hosting it to the cloud using containerization. Make it exciting, make it something worth presenting. So yeah, that's another thing I do.
Wow. Yeah. So now we asked a few of our audiences from Instagram and all the social platforms some questions they would like to ask you. So one was we got some pretty generic questions that you already answered about preparation and stuff. One was like pretty interesting. It's from Urja from Instagram. She asks that what is the correct way of practicing data structures?
Okay, good question. Urja, right? Okay, so first, I'm going to start from the top, from the very top. Pick up a language. Pick any language, whether it be Java, C++. I chose Java because that's what I learned back in school. You might learn some other language. You might want to choose some other language. My friends chose C++. So pick up any language, learn that language properly before you dive into the data structures. Next, there's a certain pattern that you have to follow while learning data structures. You cannot directly skip to dynamic programming without learning recursion. So follow that pattern. I could give you that pattern, or like there are so many resources out there on the internet from where you can get that pattern. Just to give you a general overview of what that pattern might look like, it starts with maybe, let's say, array strings, and then slowly you move on to a little complex data structures like stacks, linked list, and queue, dequeue, trees, graphs, and there was also recursion somewhere between and then dynamic programming. So that's like a pattern that you have to follow, and don't skip directly to dynamic programming. That's the most important part. And most people, they do that. They directly jump to dynamic programming and they say, "Bhaiya ho nahi raha, help keep it." And this has happened, and that's why I'm mentioning this. So yeah, and a few resources that I could suggest to you guys is this is the one that helped me. Geeks for Geeks, definitely it's the heaven for computer science engineers. And there's another one which I started a little late, which was LeetCode, right? Most of the interview questions in the companies, they will be asked from LeetCode. This is just my observation. So, yeah.
Amazing. So
Yeah, that was great. So to sum it all up, like if there was like one key point that you want your juniors to take away from this talk, like what would it be?
One key point that would be, guys, it's never too late. It's never too late to start your preparation. You guys know my story. I've just said it. I wasted the first 2 years. Okay, what my professors would describe as wasting, I described it as exploring. But yeah, so I kind of wasted my first 2 years. I did not study. I only started studying in third year. But when I started, I had a very clear mindset. So these are the questions that you need to ask yourself right now, all the people who are watching this, and even you two guys. Now ask these questions to yourself. The first question is, what do you want? What do you want to do in life? Right? The answer could be anything. Like, I want to do a technical job, be a software developer. I don't want a technical job. That's fine. I don't want a technical job. I'm a people's person. I want to be associated with sales. I want to be associated with marketing. I'm a creative person. I want to do creative marketing. So it depends for people to do. That's the first question. What do you want to do? Second question you have to ask yourself is, okay, so what do I have to do to get to that position? That's the second question you have to ask. For me, the answer was, okay, I need to work like crazy. I need to study the core subjects. I need to do a lot of coding in the next 1 year. And once you have answered these two questions, the next part is execution. And that depends entirely on you. So first answer these first two questions. That's what I did. And it worked for me. And then after that, once you've done that, I cannot help you. Then it depends entirely on you. It depends on your perseverance, and your willpower, and how much you want it. So yeah, that's what I want you to take away from this interview.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bhaiya. It was wonderful having you. We will
Thank you
link
for having me.
all the ways to reach Harshit Bhaiya in the Instagram and Spotify and YouTube descriptions of this episode. Please subscribe to the DSC KIIT's YouTube channel if you want to keep up to these episodes of How I Made It. Thank you so much for being here, Bhaiya, and thank you to all the
Thank you,
listeners. Please share this with your friends if you think this was valuable and this was a meaningful conversation. Thank you so much.